Welcome to the Digital Journey Podcast. Every successful online business entrepreneur has an incredible story to share about their journey to success. Listen and learn from top digital mavericks and online business insiders as they share their secrets so you can live the lifestyle you deserve. Your pilots for today's journey, Rob Fortney and Nick Nimmin. Welcome aboard, passengers. The digital journey begins now.
Hey guys, welcome to the Digital Journey Podcast, navigating your online business voyage. I'm Rob Fortney from the Amazon Gorillas and my wonderful, sexy, bald friend, Nick Nimmin. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Rob. And you know, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I'm for anybody that listens to this on a regular basis, that whole thing, I'm starting to get a little uncomfortable.
We're gonna have to
get a little uncomfortable here.
Maybe my sexy bearded guy.
That won't make me any more or less uncomfortable.
If this is your first time listening, thanks for coming. And if you are returning, nice to see you again. The Digital Journey Podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment.
Feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed so you don't miss any info nuggets that may be a game changer for you and your digital business. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, go to our website, digitaljourneypodcast.com.
Our guest for today's show is Jerry Jariwalla. He's from London and spends most of his time traveling most of the year. He does freelance client work for online business owners. And Jerry is going to share how he helps grow people's businesses with chatbots and sales funnels.
And before we get into that, I want to let you know that the Digital Journey Podcast is brought to you by our friends at empireflippers.com. Empire Flippers is the #1 curated marketplace for buying and selling established, profitable online businesses. Visit their website at empireflippers.com and see what businesses are for sale. And if you already own a business, there's a great place on their website where you can get your business evaluated and see how much it's worth. Let's get this journey started.
Welcome, Jerry, the funnel guy. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you.
Pleasure.
I think one of the great important things about business is we always are looking for ways to expand it and create more business from our current customer base, because acquisition of customers or clients takes a lot more effort than to use the people that you already have and to communicate with them.
Absolutely.
So, hey, why don't you give me a second and give me your backstory, like before you started on your online journey to become a successful online entrepreneur. What industry or types of business did you use, and where are you from?
Well, my backstory, it all started in 2003 in London, when I joined my father's business, which he was a one-man show. It was a locksmith, just essentially trading time for money. And there came a time when I really wanted to join him and try and grow it into a proper business. And my version of a proper business is when you're not relying necessarily on all your time in relation to money. So I joined him. He wouldn't let me start growing the business at all unless I put my books away, put my laptop away, and picked up the tool bag and actually learned how to become a locksmith. So there was no way that I could start working on the business until I really knew what I was talking about.
Smart guy.
Yeah, absolutely. His words will never leave me. And what he said was, there is no way that anyone's going to listen to you who is senior or younger than you and give you any respect unless you really know what you're talking about. So get that down first. No one in this game, he says, wants to know how many degrees you've had, doesn't want to know really and truly what you're about or what you do. All they want to know is, can you help them, and do you know as much or if not more than them in order to get ahead. And that really has stuck with me through the years. And 14 years later, I'm still singing the same tune.
Nice. Yeah, wise words for sure.
Yeah. So when I joined him after learning the trade and learning how to pick open doors, and opened safes. I found myself in
Leading a life of crime?
Absolutely.
No, I'm just kidding. I couldn't resist.
I was thinking the same exact thing. You just got to.
Yeah, he was
before me.
leading into that. I was like, all right.
Yeah, I have my cape in my bag.
So if I get locked out of my bathroom or my deal,
You're
you
the
can
guy.
help us out.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Yeah.
You just saw me. I was able to just take a screwdriver and turn it on for Nick. Just a minute ago.
Precisely. Yeah. So I learned the trade, and then I started to help him grow the business. And unbeknown to me, I didn't really have a strategy at the beginning. All I knew is that we needed to do marketing. And at that stage, my dad was putting little ads in the Yellow Pages, and he thought, if he got out there, then he would get more work. Relying on just the local area was no longer an option if he wanted to really grow the business. But all he did by putting the ads out was just get busier. So that wasn't a bad thing because, of course, he grew as an individual person and he grew his small business, but he was still trading time for money. So by the time I joined the business and I started helping him grow it, my brother joined as well, and we turned it into a small family business. Essentially by 2009, we had over 150 guys on the road. We were covering, the whole of England, Scotland, and Wales, and we'd grown. Yeah, we'd really grown
Substantially.
substantially. Yeah.
And do you think that's a result of the marketing that you were part of, or?
I put a lot of that. The foundation was always going to have been put down by my father. He is a very wise man, and I owe everything that I've got to him.
That's super cool.
But yes, he would be the first one to say that the marketing did make a difference. And something that's quite interesting for most people who are online today is that back in those days we were using Yellow Pages and things like split testing. Something that we take for granted nowadays. Most softwares have a split testing functionality or something like that. We were doing it manually. So what I mean by that is that we'd possibly put 3 or 4 different types of ads in one edition of the Yellow Pages, but those ads would talk to different audiences. So you'd have your really polished kind of ad that looks very well thought out or very well designed, gives an impression of affluence, reliability, credibility, and things like that. And then you'd have the really roughly put together ad, which attracted the people that just wanted a good bargain and really were not so affluent, but just wanted to get the job done as quickly and as fast as possible.
Did that change by region that you were doing? Was there different areas you did different marketing plans?
Absolutely. So when it came to, we were in so many different books. When I say books, I refer to the Yellow Pages phone book. And they were clever because they segmented each Yellow Pages book to an area, but that area was quite wide. So in London, for example, they had 6 or 7 different books that, as you would expect in a large city like London. But having 6 books still didn't cover them like the small towns within that Yellow Pages book. So we even had ads that would split that geographic region down even further. So just to make it easier for people to understand, if I had a Yellow Pages book that covered a part of New York, then I'd have Manhattan, I'd have the Bronx, I'd have Brooklyn, all within the ad with a separate phone number. So what we were doing was we were then further segmenting that like audience into their sub-regions, and then we were able to see where most of our calls were coming from by tracking the telephone numbers.
Fantastic.
Which was really interesting, and that really was a kind of first dip for us in terms of the world of segmentation, and it was life-changing.
Sure. Now with that, you take all of that and you apply that. Like, how do you apply that to what it is that you're doing now?
Well, those were the fundamental lessons that taught us everything about segmentation. And one of the guys that I look towards when dealing with things like segmentation is Ryan Levesque, who is the author of the Ask Method, and he has essentially scientifically and psychologically completely split this area down and made it his domain. Funny thing is that before he kind of blew up with the Ask Method, we realized that we were doing a lot of the stuff that he talks about. So he has obviously taken it to a much further level in terms of segmentation, but we really do use segmentation, and I urge everyone to try and use segmentation when splitting your audience.
All right, just give us a basic definition of segmentation so somebody isn't aware.
The most common way of thinking of segmentation that I've come across is buckets. So how I think of different segments is having different buckets for people. So if I had one message, and that message went out to, say, for example, an audience which was full of entrepreneurs, full of people that had jobs, full of children, full of adults, and a whole mix of audiences, and I sent them one message, then the chances are that message is only going to be applicable to a certain segment of that audience. So in order to make that audience more susceptible and more reactive to your message, what we try and do is segment that audience first by putting all the kids in one bucket, putting all the entrepreneurs in another bucket, and then further segmenting entrepreneurs into the type of businesses that they might do. So you could have digital nomads in one business, you could have the ultra uber rich people, successful business owners in another bucket, and then you, quite frankly, the way that you speak to someone that owns a yacht is very different to the way you would speak to a child, and it makes sense to send them a different message.
Sure.
So that is, I don't know whether that answers your question or not, but that's how I define segmentation. If I was to put it in a sentence, I would put it in terms of splitting your market into buckets so that you can send them a targeted, relevant message that resonates with them.
I did pretty good. That's exactly what I wrote down. I'm trying to keep better in our notes that I can put that in very specific points. So that's pretty much what I wrote. So I understood.
Awesome. So with your current business, when you take on a new client, how do you apply all of this to a new client? What's the process that you take them through in order to make sure that you're providing the right service to them?
Well, maybe I should start by explaining what it is.
What it is that you do specifically.
Specifically.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Start there.
I add value by trying to help people grow their businesses. And
now, is that mostly online businesses or people doing stuff on the internet, or?
It's actually a combination of both.
Okay.
So there are people that have online e-commerce businesses or some sort of business online. I can help them grow their businesses. But what's really interesting is, because of my background with a variety of different businesses and a variety of a multitude of exposures in terms of the different businesses that I've worked with over the last 15 years, I realized that there was something that I could add value. I have had businesses that are offline and now have businesses that are online. So I really see that bridge on how to bridge those two kind of very different domains. So I like taking the online element and applying it to an offline business, which is precisely what I did when I was growing the locksmith business. And then after that, I sold high security bulletproof doors that looked like pieces of art to the 1%. So that is a really difficult kind of target audience. And I wasn't going around knocking on doors. Sure. Excuse the pun.
They're not answering the door, probably.
They're not answering the pun. They're not answering the door for sure. But that was a very, even with the locksmith business, once we moved from Yellow Pages, then we evolved into Google Adwords. We were the first company that offered a locksmith service in England on Google Adwords. And that was incredible because although we segmented the market using the Yellow Pages, suddenly we were dropped into this world of immediate gratification. So we tried an ad, and as we do now, we try ads and we can immediately change them. And that was completely new. That was mind-blowing back then. And that was what really took us from what might be described as a mom and pop kind of outfit to being a national organization with an office, a call center, staff, numerous vehicles on the road, hundreds of people employed. And that was what it was that actually made the difference. So I have a kind of secret passion. It's not really secret, but it's a kind of hidden passion where I take people that say, oh, you guys, you're online and you have no barriers and you can work from anywhere and things like that, and you're taking advantage of all these millions of people online. I wish I could do that. And I say, well, you can.
Right.
I've helped chiropractors bring people into their business from online to offline. I've helped numerous offline types of businesses, event companies, get people in the room. In fact, we're filling up a room as we speak right now, which is a very targeted audience for entrepreneurs that have businesses over $1 million. So our intention with that is to try and target people who have those kind of businesses and get them all in one room on behalf of this events company. And that's working really, really well. So it's trying to bridge that gap between people that feel that online is specifically for online businesses, but that's totally not true. And I try and direct them and guide them in the way of exponentially, what ends up being an exponential growth. I mean, that chiropractor before might have been seeing 2 or 3 or 5 people a day. And by using the methods that we introduced to him, he was filling up, he had to hire 3 more chiropractors in order to cover the demand, and grew his business essentially threefold over a period of a month.
Over a month?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just shows you the immediate impact of online marketing. And I think it's unique, or I think that it's really great that people may be listening right now and they have a business. And we often talk about people who have, the freedom to be able to go do other things. But I think you can free yourself up. Obviously, once you have 3 chiropractors, you become much more of a manager of what you're doing, which will allow you more time to spend with your family. So you don't always have to travel. I think people think you get a business and you have to travel. No, you just need to create more time in your life to make the decisions you want to do.
Precisely. And when you start getting into the crux of it, I tried to figure out what it was that he was looking for. And he wasn't really looking for growing his business. He was fine with those 3 clients a day at $150 a session. That's not a bad income. It's close to $300,000 a year. But in a month, he managed to turn it into $1 million a year. Now, what that did is give him freedom.
Right.
So what he was looking at in terms of the online community with the freedom, and that was what he wanted. He didn't really want to grow his business. He wanted his time back. And as you say, by employing those 3 other chiropractors, he became more of a manager, and he was then looking at how to get more people into his funnel, and try and get them to turn into longer term clients. Because if you're a chiropractor and you have to do an adjustment, that's not a one-time fix. So there was a lifetime value that he didn't really think about when he was looking at his marketing expenditure. So he might have been thinking that it costs him, $50 to get a customer, and he's only making $100 on top of that. But actually, what he ended up doing was giving it away for free. So he thought, with the initial mindset, that he was only going to make $110, and that wasn't enough to cover his overheads. But we managed to convince him to give a portion of that for free, and that actually did the opposite. Instead of eating into his profit margin, it tripled it.
So Jerry, what other kind of businesses were you involved in before you actually started your online journey?
Okay, so there was, after the locksmith business, having had a lot of industry experience in security, I realized that one of the fundamental things that was going on in London was the fact that people were getting their doors kicked in. It was quite a violent time. You know, it was during the time of the recession. People didn't have money. People didn't have really any kind of spare income. So they were resorting to crime. You'll see globally, whenever there's a kind of dip in the economy, then crime will relate to that. And there usually are crime spikes. And that just got me thinking that I needed to sell something that was different, something that was targeted to a really unique market. And I came across essentially what I thought was a product that could really help people have that peace of mind. And being in the locksmith business for 9-10 years, I realized that what people wanted was peace of mind. They didn't want necessarily a strong door or 5 locks on their door or anything like that. They just wanted to close their door and have a good night's sleep without being disturbed. So trying to think about the target market, I realized that there was a sector of the market that this message resonated more with than any other part of the market, and that was the 1%. And I describe the 1% as the 1% of the population who are, in monetary terms, the 1% of the income kind of earners, so the uber rich. And what I found is that their problems were not necessarily money related, but they had problems sleeping at night. They had problems because they didn't know how to switch off. And one of the things that Maslow talks about in his hierarchy of needs is that people need shelter. People need to feel safe. People need to be fed. And it didn't matter that these people were uber millionaires and in some cases billionaires, they still didn't get a night's sleep. And when I found out that that problem was related to their, the bottom foundation to their life, which was their shelter and their home life, I needed to help. And what I brought into the market, or helped bring into the market, was these bulletproof and high security doors that were made of steel, had 12, 15 locks. Some of them could open with car fob keys and things like that. A lot of automation in terms of what we now call the Internet of Things, which is all about using the internet for cameras and operating things in your home. This was one of those first things that we brought into the market. So you're talking about what is probably in your mind a very ugly looking door, but that wouldn't sell to that kind of audience. Right. We weren't selling to the military, although we did, but that wasn't the target audience. This thing needed to operate like a normal door. So what we did is we dressed that bulletproof door in wood, and that dressing was bespoke. So we could do a hard mahogany or an oak finish on a steel door that weighed 500 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds, guys. You might have to help me, but
11 or 1,200 pounds.
Yeah,
which is a lot. A car weighs like a couple thousand, so
yeah,
that's a big door.
It's essentially half the weight of a small car.
Right.
That's the easiest way of describing it. And we made this product so it looked like we could make it look like a piece of art. There was one very popular pop star at the time. I can't mention the name, but she lived in this building that was grade 1 listed, which means that you couldn't change the outside of the door. It had to look like all the other doors in the street, and that was a governance by the local authority. But on the inside, when you walked into her house, she would have a sax in the corner. She would have an electric guitar. The outside Georgian feel of the building didn't match the inside, and she didn't want that she didn't want the exterior to come into the interior. So what we did was we made the outside look exactly like the rest of the doors on the street, and then make the inside one of her album covers.
Oh wow!
So we really went into the kind of ultra bespoke kind of market, tailoring these objects to make people feel more comfortable. And that, like 500 kilo door, we had what's called a 4-year-old test, which meant that if a 4-year-old could literally open the door with his finger, then that was good enough for us to put that door on someone's house.
Now, did you market? Were you using the internet and Google Ads to market to those people
Absolutely.
as well?
Yeah.
So segmentation of each of the audience, the same kind of thing.
Precisely.
Which I'm sure, again, sets up where you went eventually online.
Yes, absolutely. So we used the online marketing exclusively in that region.
Okay.
It was only after the first year we started doing some really big exhibitions and really started to get noticed, and that's when publications like the Financial Times picked it up and things like that in the entrepreneur section. So it was something new, it was something exciting, and we showed once again how we could take a really boring product, add some tweaks to it, and then use the internet to essentially spread our message. Which then led me going to Tanzania. Tanzania, for those of you that listening don't know where it is, it's in East Africa on the coast of the east side of Africa, and it surrounds Lake Victoria and Mount Kilimanjaro, which is a beautiful region of the world. I highly recommend you visit it if you haven't. And it's a huge country with a 7% growth rate right now. It's one of the fastest growing cities in the world. I'm talking about Dar es Salaam, which is the commercial capital of Tanzania. And it is still and it was fantastically growing at that time. So I moved out there because one of my best friends was from there, and I went out to visit him. I saw an opportunity and decided to stay. And I set up a business that focused on security products, that was, and safety goods. And the kind
so
of
I guess that came from your history in the bulletproof doors.
Absolutely, sure. Yeah. When you think about my product knowledge, it was very much security based, but security and safety then started to become a very keen interest of mine because of the environment that I was in. I was seeing people climb up scaffoldings and be on towers on construction. You know, any city that's growing at 7% is going to have a hell of a lot of construction, I'm sure you know.
Cranes everywhere.
Cranes everywhere. Well, not so much cranes, but scaffolding and people climbing climbing these things without harnesses, without helmets, without any kind of
There's that going on here too.
Yeah, a lot of that going on here.
Bamboo, they use bamboo scaffolding here.
Yeah, absolutely. So that really opened my eyes, and I knew that I could make a difference. And the government were trying, but not effectively policing the standard of quality of the products that the people were bringing in. So we set up a business, and we started that business in 2013, and we grew it to become one of the market leaders by 2016. We had all the oil, all the mine, well, I say all, but most of the mine, oil and gas industries operating in the country, as well as a huge portion of the construction industry and a bunch of distribution resellers. So we were now not only reselling, but we're importing containers of goods. We were having to get our heads around management systems, warehouse systems. One of our things was that we used the cloud. We used cloud software, which no one was doing in Tanzania. We used email lists, so anyone that walked into our shop would have to leave their email. And using those lists, we essentially grew our funnels, and we continued the conversations that we started with them in the shops online. And then that's how we grew that business. So Tanzania was essentially like going back to the future. So we'd accumulated all this experience of how to take offline businesses online, and then applied those experiences to our business in Tanzania. And when I say our, I mean by the time I'd started it, my father then joined. My brothers then came and emigrated from England to join us in Tanzania, and essentially we Brexited. So
fantastic.
So I was about to say. So from that point, how did that pull you into like chatbots and sales funnels and all that stuff? So you briefly touched on how you started applying your funnels to that business. How did you transition from that into like the chatbots and into what it is that you're doing now?
Well, what I realized is that my brothers and I were involved in a business where I was predominantly leading the way things were going. And they were in positions in the business where they would totally have a say, but essentially they wouldn't have autonomy. And what we realized is that we had a point of extra capacity. So we sat down and we said, right, we're quite heavy on the management side here, and we have capacity as a family. What should we do? And I'd been working for 15 years by then. And I wanted to take a break. So I started, where I normally go around April is the Canton Fair in Guangzhou. So I ended up going there, and with the view to try and find another product or another business, or trying to expand our family capability so that we could spread our wings even more. And I came away with absolutely nothing.
There's a lot of product there to come out with nothing.
Have you guys been to the Canton Fair?
I have not.
It's overwhelming. And those of you that have been to the Canton Fair, overwhelming is totally an understatement. I've been there numerous times, and never once in the 5 days that I stay there do I get around the whole of the exhibition. Wow. And I have this little pedometer, and I tend to walk around about 15 to 20 kilometers in those 5 days just in the exhibition hall. So
and that's only 1 week. There are like 3 or 4 weeks.
That's 5 days.
Right.
So that's one of the, it's 5 to 7 days, but I think it's 5 days, and that's one of the phases, and there are usually 3 or 4 phases at the Canton Fair. So that's one phase, and it takes you so long. But so my point is that I walked all around this fair in the phase that I was trying to find a product for, and for the first time, I didn't have something that I really, really wanted to latch onto. So I left Guangzhou feeling like I'd failed, and that is not a good feeling. And when I felt that feeling, I felt like I couldn't go back to Tanzania, because I'd gone to the Canton Fair to discover a product and take back to my brothers and my family a new product that we could start a new business with and utilize that extra kind of capital.
The millions of products there, like how come you didn't, like what do you think the reason you didn't come away with a product?
It's because I didn't have a vision. I didn't really know what I was looking for.
Okay.
I didn't know where I was going to sell it. How
you were window shopping.
I was window shopping, looking for inspiration, looking for something to hit me in the face. And what I realize now is that was never going to happen. If you do that with the hope that you are going to go and find a product, you might be lucky. But in my experience, the chances are that you're inundated with so many different products. I mean, I saw things like specs cleaners and, iPhone cases to industrial machinery. And in one case, I was looking at an ethanol plant, and that was a totally, totally different sector in terms of what I'd done. But you're there and you get interested in something, and you start digging into it and starts making sense. But it's also bright, shiny object syndrome. You see something that looks amazing, and I was sitting there looking at an ethanol plant, thinking about taking it back to Tanzania, and it was crazy. Like, and in hindsight, it was madness. But after I left there, I started traveling. I started bumping into people, digital nomads, and realizing that I was actually adding value in these conversations that I was having with these people, and I had experience of the solutions and the answers to the challenges that they were having. And I met a friend of mine in Bali. So I ended up traveling to Bali and things like that. Traveled numerous countries, numerous cities, meeting people, talking to people, understanding what their challenges were, just essentially trying to find out what it was that people needed. And when I met a friend of mine who was from London, we arranged to meet in Bali. He sat me down and we essentially reverse engineered my success. So this was looking back at all the businesses that I'd done, all the kind of trials and errors that I'd been through, really kind of getting into a granular detail of what worked for me. And we came to the conclusion that I basically think in funnels. And when my approach to things is essentially getting a mass audience and then segmenting them into buckets, like I said, and sending them a relevant message. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I was selling them something, but it's just something that would give them value. And that could be some experience share, or a skill share, or just an idea or a recommendation. What it ended up being was that I realized that I had an ability to see kind of the end game with whoever I was talking to. And Mike turned around to me and said, "Jerry, you're the funnel guy. Like, literally, you're the funnel guy. You think like this. And every time I've seen you talk to somebody, you end up thinking in a way of transforming their business in a way that adds value, adds growth, and adds bottom dollar sales to their business. But how you're doing it is you're essentially creating different ways of funneling people into business." And when we discovered that I was able to add value in creating funnels and things like that for people, I started talking to people, and I realized that people wanted to buy these services that were not essentially service to begin with, but people were willing to pay for that advice. Then what I realized was that I had the team already in place to actually not only give them the strategies and consult with them, but turn those things into practical artifacts. And I call them artifacts because they end up being pieces of critical IP for the business that I'm working for. So whether that's a sales page or a piece of good copy or a good video or whatever that might be something that business would reuse or repurpose again. And I was actually able to produce that using my team and essentially do the work for them. So we turned the business into a done-it-for-you agency. And we started working with lots of different clients. Most people tend to specialize in a particular area when it comes to funnels because they can get quite complex. But what I realized is that I was able to put my mind, using my experience, to a lot of different scenarios and still have success. So as of yet, I haven't really niched down into a particular target sector. But what I realize is that I do tend to kind of focus on online businesses that are more established than not, because the thing about funnels is that you can make a really small percentage difference to someone's very large business and make a huge dollar difference. So those kind of activities are really, really powerful because they make huge amounts of impact.
So what do you look for? Like when you're putting a funnel together for somebody, what do you look for?
I look for low-hanging fruit, first of all, quick wins, things that can make real big differences to people's funnels. I look for where the audience is. I really focus on whether they have a handle on who they think their audience is. And I really start getting into the pain points of what their customer's looking for. And that helps me create copy. And we do that by using several methods on how to extract the language from the audience. And that essentially leads us down a path of being able to make a more relevant message to their audience. When I say their audience, I mean my client's audience. Sure. So that is a really good way of doing it, because once you start talking to your clients, a lot of people simply don't talk to their clients. They just think that because they're selling boxes, that they don't need to talk to their clients, or some people don't even get a chance to talk to their clients. So Amazon people specifically, it's really difficult to talk to your clients. So I help people, and especially Amazon kind of clients, move their businesses not only on Amazon, but also off Amazon, so that they can start really using their skills that they've developed and the products that they develop into their own lists. And when you own a list, it's so much more powerful than relying on somebody else's list. And when I say list, I mean email list or some form of list, even if it's a list of phone numbers. You know, when it came to our locksmith business or our bulletproof door business, it was a phone number. It wasn't an email. It was a conversation that we had. And what I realized was that this is a very easy and quick win for most people. If they start talking to their audiences, then their audience will really soon give them the answers they're looking for. But not only that, but they'll also give them the language that they speak in. So it's very easy to mirror that. So that is like one way of adding value.
With the chatbot stuff do, how do you plug that into what it is that you're doing for your clients? How do you do you make the chatbot part of the funnel that you're building for them? Like how do you connect the dots there?
Well, chatbots, as you know, are quite relatively new. So people are doing lots of experimentation, and we use chatbots to, I mean, my thing, guys, is essentially conversations. I really, really believe in conversations, and I believe email to be an extension of a conversation that you and I might have. So today we're here because we had a conversation, and we will continue this conversation after this session finishes, because we've now built up a rapport. And that's essentially what every single business is doing with their audience. They're building conversations, building rapport, building relationships. And what Chatbots does is it doesn't replace email. What it does is, in my opinion, and what I'm seeing is it bolsters that conversation. So someone may not have the time or the ability to read a long sales page that you've written them. You know that you might get up to a 10% open rate, for example. The readability of an open rate is going to be much less as well. So if your list is 50,000 people and you're getting like a 5% open rate, then how many people are actually listening to your message? Therefore, you then start, traditionally what you would do is you would start emailing people every day. And out of those people that would open, a certain percentage would open on a Monday, certain percentage would open on a Wednesday. Some people might open every email, some people might open 1 in 100 emails. What Chatbots does is it accelerates that. And it accelerates the feedback as well. So you can essentially start that conversation and continue that conversation using a message. You might not have the time to write me an email, but you might have the time to click a button on the messenger bot that might pop up.
Sure.
A really good example of that is the way that people use coupons. So Groupon sends coupons by email. We send coupons by chatbot. So,
and when you say you send it, how are you sending that? Like, how does that happen?
So we might, for example, traditionally, we might have put an ad up for a particular pain problem. And if that pain problem was a backache, for example, I might have a product that explains why you might have a backache. So if you're working in an office or something like that, this information product might give you the answer as to why you have that problem, and that would be sent by email. Now, what the chatbot does is it starts asking you questions about where that pain is. So what we're doing is using the chatbot to have a conversation and narrow down that audience. So if I say, if the chatbot, we know that someone's got a back problem, and we can send them an email with an ebook giving them 10 reasons why you might have a backache. But then what the chatbot can do is it can have a conversation with you and say, is that back pain in the lower back, the middle of the back, or the higher back, or your shoulders and neck? And now, instead of sending you a blanket email with...
It's customized.
It's customized. So
The buckets,
yeah. Exactly. So we're using chatbots to put people in buckets, and someone with a shoulder pain doesn't really want to know about the 7 other reasons that I have a lower back pain. They want 10 reasons on why they have shoulder pain. So what we do is we use chatbots to find that out and then deliver the correct piece of information that they want. And when you deliver a correct and relevant piece of information, you get engagement. And when you get engagement, you get an extension of the conversation. And when you get an extension of the conversation, that builds comfortability. And when you get a comfortable conversation, people are more open and more susceptible and they listen more. And when they listen, they are more open to opportunities. And if you then present an opportunity that might relieve their pain somehow, it causes them to be less resistant to put their hand in their pocket and pull a credit card out.
And ultimately, that's the end of the deal. So one of the things...
No. It's definitely not the end of the deal.
So the conversation turns into sales, and then what happens?
Well, why should you stop the
so
conversation?
Continuing the conversation so you can have repeat business over time.
Absolutely. And that's one of the fundamental things that I see people get wrong.
Oh, yeah. And I think definitely that creating constant conversation with your customer makes sense because you're going to resell them. They're the easiest people to resell.
Absolutely.
Every online entrepreneur has digital tools that contribute to their success. What's in your digital toolbox?
I am really loving Calendly at the moment.
I use it too.
What is it?
It's Calendly.
Oh, Calendly. Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm always traveling, it allows me to be able to be reachable. Essentially, schedule my time when I'm available for calls or available for meetings online or offline, and people can schedule they can essentially schedule themselves into my calendar, and it will send me a notification, send them a notification, and also block out my calendar so I don't put anything else in there.
Right.
So I'm really finding that useful. I also I used to use Trello. I still do use Trello, but for more detailed projects, I am really loving Asana.
That's the second Asana mentioned in the last 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I'm loving Asana because it allows you to drill down a lot more than Trello, and the ability to link things like Gantt charts in there. So there's a tool that I use called Instagant, which links into Asana, which allows me to schedule minor tasks within a big task within Asana. So it really allows me to move things around and, most of all, keep the conversation going with my client. Because I believe so much in conversations, well, why should my conversation with my client be any different? I want to have that conversation with my client and have him bought into the project. So the only way of doing that is to be transparent. And having a shared Asana or a Gantt chart really removes that, oh, Jerry, what are you doing now? What's happening now? What's happening next? What are we doing next? It's all planned out and they know what's happening. So it really saves me time, saves me effort, and keeps the customer informed. They're happy. They know what's happening next. And most importantly, it allows us as an internal team to be able to stay on the same page.
Sure.
We have lots of different skill sets within funnels. We have Facebook guys, we have UX guys, we have copywriters, lots of different skill sets that are needed to build a funnel. And that's one of the reasons why people come to us, because we have that all in one box. And Asana really helps us to get on the same page and be transparent.
Fantastic plug for Asana right there. That was great. Yeah.
What kind of other software tools do you use? Maybe what kind of software do you build your funnels in? What kind of email platform are you using?
Well, one of the most common ones is Lead Pages, but I tend not to use Lead Pages because I like the functionality of data. I really like data-driven software that gives me further insight into how my workflow is working. So I tend to use Clickfunnels. I'm sure you've heard of it, but Clickfunnels allows for me to have a variety of different offerings for a variety of different types of businesses. So my clients are selling information products, physical products. Some of them are selling products on other platforms like Amazon and building their own lists. What Clickfunnels does is it allows all of those businesses to be able to essentially sell without being biased towards one particular type of business.
And the data inside there, I think, is pretty good. Tracking, split testing.
Yes.
You're able to put your email server inside. So I definitely was a ClickFunnels customer.
Great. Brilliant. Yeah, we love ClickFunnels.
What other kind of tools do you? Are you listening to any podcasts? Do you have blogs that you read?
I really like Seth Godin, and he's kind of dropped off recently, more dropped off recently than he used to. But his books have taught me an immense amount over the years. I've been a huge fan of Seth Godin. I listen to his podcast as well. I also like Masters of Scale, and it's essentially it's a movie for your ears. So they have a full production team. They have the sound. It's written like a script. It's like a story, but it interviews people like Mark Zuckerberg. It's all the high-profile startup CEOs on there. He himself is a high-profile startup CEO with many connections evidently, and it's just really nice to hear these people in a different surrounding rather than being in front of a camera or on stage trying to perform, so to speak.
Sure.
This is more of a kind of conversation, which is really nice.
One of the things that we also talk about, we'll sum this up, is do you have any rituals or morning things that you do to get your day started right, or ways in which you kind of keep some track or organization to your life that way?
I'm trying.
That's all you can do, right? That's all you can do, right?
Like I've been trying to get 5 minutes of meditation in every month, or every day.
Every month, yeah.
That one. Maybe I could do that. Maybe we'll start out with a one a month. But
well, I think meditation is really powerful, and
it's changed my life.
Has it?
Yeah.
I think it's not something new, but it feels new. It's new to me. It does give me the time to just compose myself instead of my usual thing, which might be waking up to an alarm, running into the bathroom because inevitably I've snoozed 5 times before that, and I'm running late, so I'm running to the bathroom, haven't composed myself. I'm rushing, and it essentially leaves me in a panic. But as soon as I started meditating, it allowed me to compose myself. Because I knew that I had to meditate, it was one less snooze. That set me up. Yeah. So if I could have one less snooze, it would have a major impact in my life. And sacrificing those extra 10 minutes of sleep time in the morning really allows me to set up my day. And once again, I've only recently really started using Asana, but it allows me to think of things more logically because it's cleared that space for that. So yeah, I wouldn't say I have a rigid routine. I'm trying to meditate and have more time to like plan it and plan my day, which has resulted in a much more clearer and more productive day, actually.
So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, they want to work with the funnel guy, how do they contact you, and what's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, I'm totally open to Facebook requests. And of course, messenger requests and things like that. You can find me through Facebook, or you can find me on our website, which is funnelguy.me. And also, you can go on to our Facebook page, which is Funnel Guy, and have a play with our interactive chatbot.
Yeah, that's kind of proof right there, right? So go play with that chatbot and see how it all works out.
Yeah,
that's good.
We can continue the conversation.
Right.
Precisely.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us, Jerry. You've been listening to the Digital Journey podcast, navigating through your online business voyage. We'll see you next week. And if you've not listened to our previous podcasts, you can check them out at our website at digitaljourneypodcast.com.
We also encourage you to give us some feedback, so leave a review or send us a message. And if you have a great story that you want to share, you can reach out to Rob at gorillasonline.com, or you can reach out to me at nicknimmin.com. And if you're interested in searching for an online business or selling your business, make sure to check out empireflippers.com. Opportunity is waiting for you at empireflippers.com.
Also in the show notes, we're really trying to add in all this information, how to contact a guest and the tips and tricks that they're able to give us. Thanks again, Jerry, for sharing your digital journey. We wish you tons of success in the future. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this podcast and it has inspired you. Before I let you go, I want to share some wise words from some other smart entrepreneurs. The road to success and the road to failure are almost exactly the same. And that's Colin Davis.
Nice. That's good.
Nice.
All right. Good. See everybody. Bye.
All right.
You're listening to the Digital Journey podcast. The Digital Journey is brought to you by Empire Flippers, the largest marketplace for selling and purchasing online businesses. EmpireFlippers.com.